Welcome to The Breakdown. I'm your host, Diane Rembert, avid reader, award-winning literary blogger, and the founder of Diamond's Literary World, which is my footprint in the literary industry. Today, I want to talk to you about a young adult book, which is a little different for me, but I'm starting to like this genre. It's Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson, one of the most talked about books in 2020. I picked it up, did not have any clue as to what I was in store for. Let me just tell you, I want to thank my girl Lanika for recommending this book to me. By far one of the best books that I've read so far in 2021. The only thing that I am going to say about Grown, and I've heard it a few times from various other readers, Tiffany takes her plots straight from the headlines, because as I was reading this book about a young lady who was an aspiring singer, she's very athletic, oldest child at home, so she's almost like forced into helping raise her siblings, but yet she wants to, you know, go out and live her own life. Comes from a two-parent household who both parents are constantly working to provide for their children, so they're rarely home. So the young lady Enchanted, as I said, is an aspiring singer. She tricks her mother into taking her to an audition, and there she meets Korey Fields, an R&B singer, who sets eyes on her, preys on her, I guess is more, for better lack of a term, and promises her mother that he can help her further her career, and he does it in a sneakingly way. He tricks her mother and father into meeting one of their favorite R&B singers, so that he can get her phone number. He's texting her at all times of the day and night, and eventually he wows her, and they start to have this like secret relationship, which eventually turns into a full-blown relationship, right up underneath the eyes of her parents. And the things that Enchanted was forced to encounter while she's on the road with Korey, because he does convince her parents to let her go on the road with him, travel with him, because he's, again, going to further her career. Her parents at first were a little reluctant, then, you know, he talks them into it. I say he gives them a little money, because, you know, hard times fall on the dad. And so one thing leads to another, and this young lady is caught up in a whirlwind. I mean, she was so not ready for life on the road with Korey Fields. You could tell that he manipulated her, and he did it before based on the crowd that he had surrounding him. And then there were the tabloids and the accusations, and then, you know, the lawsuits that came about from other women about, you know, apparently he had did this to several girls prior to Enchanted, and it just became one big mess. And as I'm reading the book, I'm like, this is Robert Kelly, aka the Aura. Like, you had some of the scenes in this book, if you watched Surviving R. Kelly, it's almost as if you were reading what you had witnessed on your television screen. And, you know, I had questions, so much so that when I finished the book, I had to do an impromptu book discussion on Clubhouse. And I asked, you know, people who had read the book to come and talk to me about it, because I was kind of, I had, like I said, questions. I was a little bothered by some things, but I felt like I was reading the Robert Kelly story. I felt like there were so many people that were helping Korey in order to manipulate these young girls. I felt like the parents played somewhat of a part to it, and in it, and when they found out, it was kind of too late. Like, the damage had been done. But the author's note in the back of the book, like, I just got choked up when I started talking about it, because the author's note in the back of the book completely took my breath away. Okay, so Korey ends up, he ends up meeting his demise. Not like R. Kelly. He met his in a different way. And so now Enchanted is has a, you know, she has a legal case that she's trying to fight, and all while trying to get back to her teenage years and her teenage self before she was introduced to this man. But she was a young woman scorned. She was a young woman abused. She was a young woman manipulated. And I tried to get my 19-year-old daughter to read this book with me, because I wanted her to know that there are people out there who prey on young women. You know, we've all been there. We can't blame these young girls for the situation that they find themselves in, you know, by saying, oh, they're fast, or they're, you know, the men know exactly what to say to these young girls to get them in the position that they are in or find themselves in. I do feel like her parents played somewhat of a role in it. But again, that's neither here nor there. This is someone's story. We've heard it time and time again. We saw the various women that came forth, you know, during the Surviving R. Kelly series. We heard, I met a young lady in Atlanta at the National Book Club Conference who had written a book talking about her experience. We saw the ladies on, I want to say 2020, you know, who, one big mess. But again, I go back to the author's note at the end. I felt like, at first, I felt like if Tiffany wasn't affiliated or knew somebody affiliated with this, then instead of telling the story from the male perspective, then she's telling it from the female perspective. And that came from a fellow reader. And when she said it, it made sense. Like, but I feel like this is a book that mothers should be reading with their teenage daughters, because we need to have conversations. This is a conversation starter about preserving your femininity, protecting your innocence, not being entrapped by an older man who says the right things, who knows how to get next to you, because that's what he does. And that was Korey's story, and we, like I said, we've heard it in the headlines time and time again. So for YA, I thought this was the perfect book. I feel like more people should be reading it. I hear that Tiffany Jackson has several other books that I immediately went and purchased, because I need to know more about this young lady. Again, conversation pieces or starters to have with daughters, nieces, just women, young women in your community who may be falling into the trap, if there's a conversation that you can have to somewhat steer them away. Now, we all know you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make them drink. But at least it'll be somewhere embedded in their brain. So this 5-star book is one that I highly recommend. It is a New York Times bestseller, as it should be. As it should be, because this book was everything. Please go and pick up Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson. If you've read the book, I would love to hear your comments. If you have not read the book, go pick it up and then come back and tell me your comments. Or if you've read anything by Tiffany Jackson, I think the next one I'm going to read is Monday's Not Coming, because I've heard so much about that one. So I think I'm going to read that next. And what's ironic is my 19-year-old daughter didn't want to read the book. I recommended it to my 39-year-old adopted daughter, and her emotions and her feelings were the exact same as mine. She's like, Ma, she says, I'm going to give you random texts. It's okay, baby, because whereas you may have passed this stage, you may one day become a mom, or, you know, your nieces or your little cousins, you can have the conversation with them. So, you know, I'm 50 years old. I read the book and I got so much out of it. It doesn't matter where you are in life. Pick up this book. With that being said, thank you guys for taking the time to watch the video. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for everything that you have been doing for Diamond's Literary World. Your kind words mean everything to me. Thank you for telling everybody about what we're doing over here. And I hope that you guys are staying warm and staying safe. Until next time, happy reading and be blessed.